Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again to another AMA, this time being done on Way of the Burn. My name is Jose Vega, and today we are joined by LaRouche PAC's one and only Jason Ross. We are also joined by Daniel Burke, who is an independent candidate running for Senate here in New Jersey. And of course, our very wonderful and honored guest, Mr. William Binney. Yeah, we have, oh, give me 1 second here. Eesh, I was able to hear myself in the stream and that was throwing me off. And we're also joined by our friends, Action for Assange, who will be multi-live streaming with us. So, oh, can people hear the stream? Sorry, hold on. Oh, I don't know why I'm hearing two. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so we will be multi-live streaming with our friend that cleared up now. As we begin, I would like to just briefly say something to everybody here. I want to talk to you about our new Psychological Warfare Inoculation Bureau. If you didn't like your choices in 2016, and you didn't like them this year in 2020, then you have to decide that you will be the choice. This doesn't mean that you'll run for office, but you're going to find the truth. Today, you will be hearing the truth. Each of us individually can be a transmitter, like a radio transmitter of the truth. If we join together, no matter our differences, the truth can hold us together. Then we are the most powerful force on earth, because the truth is the most powerful force on earth. We must go from being underlings to citizens, being subjects to citizens. Citizenship is overthrowing what Winston Churchill called the empire of the mind. We don't have to overthrow safety for security. That's a false idea, and Mr. Binney has proven that. You have not converted a man because you have merely silenced him. We are many, and they are few. In America, like every other country of the world, the vast majority of the world are not converted to what their banks are doing, what the governments are doing, or what educational institutions are doing. They're just silent. But if you can help them find their voice, then you have freedom to speak the truth. And this is what this AMA is about, helping you find your voice to speak the truth. Many people know what the truth is, but they can't find their voice. As President Franklin Roosevelt said, our job is to break the chain of silence by speaking the truth boldly. And that's the leadership we need. So if you didn't like your choices in 2016 or 2020, you won't like them in 2024. But the Psychological Warfare Inoculation Bureau will help you find your voice. And the first step in doing that is joining us on this conference on September 5th that Mr. Binney will be a guest on. And to speak a little bit more on this conference, I have both Jason Ross and Daniel Burke to talk a little bit about that. So if you could, gentlemen, could please tell us a little bit more about that conference.
Sure, and I'll be brief. I know people want to get to Bill Binney and to asking him questions. The Schiller Institute is hosting a conference this weekend, September 5th through 6th, and it is going to be on overcoming geopolitics and how to get the nations of the world to be able to cooperate together on common efforts such as space exploration, preventing warfare, which is a huge threat, and on creating economic development. Mr. Binney will be one of the speakers, along with many other leaders and elected officials from the United States, from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from around the world, Ibero-America. The topics that are going to be covered are very broad. We're going to be talking about how to defeat Russiagate and the surveillance state. We're going to be talking about the role of science in creating economic progress and helping us solve problems like preventing an asteroid from striking the Earth, or new forms of energy, such as nuclear fusion. We're going to talk about the proposals for cooperation between countries around the world to work together on economic development programs to end poverty completely within a generation. It's absolutely doable. And then we're going to talk also about the culture of cooperation and about what's involved in working with these other nations. So we're going to be taking on the lies that are holding us, that are causing us to fight each other, both within this country and to have unnecessary conflict with other countries. And we're going to talk about how to overcome that sort of old superpower outlook and be able to work together to achieve great things. So the link, if you'd like to register for the conference, the link is in the AMA post, and I encourage everyone to do so.
Mr. Burke, is there anything you'd like to share with us as well? You're muted.
Just join us and let's kick ass. And you should, work with Bill Binney. We just have to keep fighting until we succeed. We have to get a victory here. So break the back of the surveillance state with the truth. I totally support that.
Perfect. Now, on to what we're all here for. Mr. Binney, in order to kick off our AMA, I'd like to read to you something that came in from Michelle from Denmark. It is titled Intelligence Scandal in Denmark. Defense intelligence gave massive raw electronic data to NSA. And here are the contents of it. It's very brief. A couple days ago, the director of the Danish Defense Intelligence, FE, was sent home, along with some other employees after strong criticism from an institution established in 2014 to supervise the intelligence agency. Today, Danish radio divulged information from several sources that the scandal is that before 2014, FE had been taping central communication cables and giving access to massive amounts of raw electronic data to the NSA, which may include emails, text messages, and telephone calls from many Danes, which is illegal. According to DR, Danish radio, intelligence sharing with an intelligence agency from another nation is legal only if it involves data from very few Danes. Several whistleblowers gave information to the supervisory agency. FE is also accused of withholding information from the supervisory agency. Mr. Binney, what are your thoughts on that?
This is exactly the problem I saw that NSA, CIA, FBI, and Bush, it started with Bush, Cheney, Hayden, and Tenet. They set up this process back in 2001, and then they extended it to various other countries in the world, including the Five Eyes. They all cooperated to do this, and they're all doing that. All of those, including Japan, Poland, probably Israel, I would think. And there's a few other key points in Europe, like in the Netherlands, and I think that France should be a part of that. But I don't know all of those countries for sure. But Denmark, I knew was involved quite a long time ago. Okay, so and the point is, they're all basically pulling a sham on everybody in the planet. It has never been a problem to be able to find bad guys without giving up security anywhere. We proved that in 2000, and also 1999 was the earliest we were showing that it was possible to do that. The problem is it didn't cost a lot of money. And that's what the intelligence community was after. And so they said, we have to do this bulk acquisition because it's extremely expensive and our budgets go way up. Our knowledge and information about people in the world, including all the members of parliament of every country in the world, as well as all the people in the world who are actively participating, on any electronic device. So, I mean, that's how you gain leverage against anybody. And then if somebody gets out of line, you have something to go back and look at and retroactively analyze, and then go do and then leverage them in any way you want. So this is basically a crime against human rights worldwide. And they're a part of it, and they have been. And the Danes, at least, are starting to take that seriously. I think the Austrians also, their parliament defeated a motion to an effort to put a law into place where they could, approve bulk acquisition. They voted that down, and their Supreme Court or highest court ruled that it was unconstitutional according to Austrian law. I mean, it's unconstitutional according to U.S. law. And Elliot Shukart and I have a law or a petition to the Supreme Court that's going to be reviewed on the 29th of September. And it's challenging the constitutionality of NSA, CIA, FBI, all participating in this bulk acquisition of data on US citizens or anybody else on the planet. My problem with it when I was a technical director was I realized the problem with mass data was making our analysts dysfunctional. So I had to figure out a way to be able to solve that problem, to give them a rich environment of information to be able to succeed. I did that, but Hayden and Company threw that out because it didn't cost a lot of money and it made things efficient. They wouldn't have to build things like Bluffdale, a few $1 billion here and there for more storage centers all around the country, over here at Fort Meade, at Denver and various other places. All of that was done from money, and it was done because the intelligence community wanted to gain power over everyone. That's why President Trump, when he came into office, he was a threat to that. He wanted to reform that. That's why General Flynn was a threat to that. He wanted to audit it and make changes to the entire process that was going on. So that was disrupting the intelligence community. That's why Schumer said they have 6 ways to Sunday to get at you if you oppose them. So, I mean, this is the whole problem here. We have to get rid of this. And there are ways to do it. There's a ways to purge all of this data out of their system so none of them can use it and violate anybody's rights anywhere in the world. That's an easy thing to do. I call this the first swindle. This was the major swindle by the intelligence community of the entire population of the United States. They're swindling us for tens of billions of dollars every year. And it's also true of the other countries that are participating. They're being swindled too. And the people of those countries are losing all their human rights under their constitutions. And that's the major problem around the world. That's why this Supreme Court challenge is so important. And that's why what they did in Denmark is so important. I made sure Elliot Schuchart knew about that so he could include that in his plea when he goes before the Supreme Court, hopefully early next year.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mr. Binney, for that. That was a question submitted to us, not from the Reddit, but it was somebody who wanted to ask it before. Now we're going to turn over to the Reddit thread. Jason, do you have the first question?
Yeah, let's kick off with this one for you. Energy Drink Junkie asks, what can the average citizen do to circumvent the current state of surveillance, or at the very least, to make it a little bit harder?
Well, I would advocate creating your own encryption system if you are so inclined or have technically inclined that way. You can do that. Otherwise, you could do things like use Tor. I think might help disguise your activities. But the problem is, I believe the Five Eyes intelligence community has basically infiltrated Tor and taken over that network. Or at least they've taken over a good portion of it. They put up their own sites and monitor the transfer of data across that process. So Tor might be an option, using your own, setting up your own simple codes or things like that with your friends. Like if you say something and it means something else, that kind of thing. Otherwise, there's no way you can prevent them from capturing what you're saying or doing.
Great. You got that, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question. We are on a Bernie Sanders subreddit, so we do naturally have one question, which is, do you think the intelligence community had spied on Senator Bernie Sanders since the 60s? And are they supplying the Democratic Party with information about him? And another question, do they assign handlers or people who attempt to get close to the senator?
I don't know about the handlers, but do they spy on? Yes, they've been doing spying on. It came out in this church committee when they were investigating all these agencies back in the mid 70s, 73 to 75, I think it was. And that when they found out after that, they found out that Senator Church was one of the main targets for NSA and CIA and FBI to spy on. So yeah, and another whistleblower, Russ Tice, had said that in early 2002 he read the transcripts of the then Senator Obama's phone calls. Sure, so they're spying on all of Congress because those people have power over them, and they want to make sure they know what they're saying, thinking, and planning.
Thank you, Jason.
So next one is a question. Has the NSA security state essentially destroyed the possibility of there being authentic democracy in the US, considering they have both a minuscule and a bird's eye view of every citizen and are thus in a position to apply statistical and cognitive science to not only map the voters' minds to a previously inconceivable degree, but also to refashion or remap said minds using all but undetectable measures? Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Good. Let me ask another one since that one was so quick. What has been a consistent obstacle that prevented you from easily telling the news media your findings that there was no Russian collusion?
Basically, the problem was the mainstream media wouldn't let that kind of information out. They had a narrative they were pushing, which was the Russians, infiltrated in to influence our election, and that's the story they stuck with. They pushed that for 3 years plus, and they're not changing it now. So, but they don't want to hear anything that might be something that would destroy that narrative. My point is that that narrative is a lie and basically I call it a crow that eventually somebody's got to eat. And over time, that crow just keeps growing. Now it's just too big to swallow. So they can't, they're just locked into their narrative and they can't get out of it. So that's why I'm going, like, for example, on the Jimmy Dore show, I will be on that on the 1st of September. I think that's been scheduled now. So, but it's the non-mainstream media that's carrying the truth, not the mainstream media. They're lying through their teeth to everybody.
That's wonderful that you'll be on Jimmy Dore. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Burke, do you have the next question?
Sure. For some reason, okay. The question is, what can the average citizen do to do against this surveillance state?
I think I answered that one earlier.
Yeah, didn't Jason pose that already?
Somehow it didn't come into the Reddit. It didn't load up there. Go ahead to the next one.
Sure. This one comes from user Stankalot. And since we are live streamed, I do think it best that we do read out loud their usernames.
Okay.
This user Stankalot. He says, "Thank you for everything you've done. Now that you've experienced life after a revoked security clearance, do you think losing clearance as an across-the-board SOP would across the board would stop when you leave the government?" I'm sorry, hold on. Losing
as a standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
There we go. As an across-the-board standard operating procedure, when you leave the government, could be a way to stop the industry revolving door, or would it not really change anything?
Yes, that would be a way to stop the revolving door, because people move from government high positions into high positions in industry so that they can use their influence to get contracts back in the agencies of the government where they came from. Yeah, that would stop that. Lose the clearance and isolate them. Right now, I think the law says you cannot come back into government to influence anything in an area you were for at least a year until after you've a year after you've left government. But that's not a limitation. I mean, they can go do something in between for another company for a period for that year time and then come back after that and then use their influence to get contracts in their old agencies. That's the way they operate. There's also another thing that I'd like to mention about contracting here. You want to add that here?
Go ahead. We can since we're live streamed, I don't necessarily, you could just say it.
Okay, well, Congress legislated that 30% of the budget should be allocated to small business. Now, here's what happens and happened to us when we were a small business company. We'd go with a large corporation as a subcontractor, right? And we'd say, and the prime contractor would allocate, the major corporation, the prime contractor would allocate a certain amount of funds to us as a small business. And that would be credited against their small business account, right? Their small business spending for government agencies. They were required, I think, to do 30% of it with small business. Well, what they would do the main prime contractor would take the money, but never pass the money down or start a subcontract with us. So the whole illusion that the money was being spent for small business was still maintained, but it was actually a false swindle of the government in terms of swindling them out of, in other words, not following the directions of the intent of Congress in spending money. And that's the way they swindle not only Congress, but the people of the United States.
Great. Mr. Burke, did you come up with another question? You are muted.
Yeah, I'm still reading through them right now.
I've got
No
one.
problem.
So this is a question about what kind of people work at the NSA and what culture is like there. Question from Hunky Dory Order is, hi Bill, to your knowledge, is the NSA multifaceted regarding deep state allied versus patriot-minded folk, or is it pretty much monolithic on one side or the other?
There is, I mean, certainly the people coming into NSA are multicultural, you know, and ethnic groups, all of that. There's a mix, just like the US population, it's a mixed set of people. And they're all basically coming, when they come in, they're fundamentally patriotic, hardworking, dedicated people trying to do the right thing. But there is a culture in NSA and the entire intelligence community, this secrecy thing, kind of, you know, we're working in secret, and it's kind of a hidden culture that kind of evolves on its own. And I called it a cloning process, you know, where everybody comes in at lower levels, they start moving up the chain of grades, of GG level grades, government grade levels, getting higher and higher in the bureaucracy. There's a process that conditions them to start thinking the way that the higher structure of that agency operates, and how they want everybody to toe the line. There should be no, in other words, there was Hayden put out what was called a director's gram to basically the population of NSA in 2000, in early 2000, in April. I have a copy of it. At any rate, he said, when the corporation decides something, that's it. Everyone's supposed to line up and follow. Well, that was directed. I mean, one of the guys from the Russia shop, the linguist, gave me a copy of a Lenin quote from a 1906 statement, 1906 briefing he gave, and it said, when the party decides something, everybody should line up. Until then, you know, the party will listen to dissent, but once its decision is made, that's it. In other words, what that says is, once you do something like Trailblazer's it, and you know, there's no going back, that's the way we go. Well, you see, the problem with that is it doesn't allow for discovery along the line, right? Once you discover something, you should adjust and change your plans. Now, the Nazis made that problem in the Kurz, offensive in Russia in 1943. I think it was, where they knew there was a big, that the Soviets had set up a good deep defense for the attack, but still they went ahead. Why? Because the plan is the plan, you know? And that one failed just like Trailblazer failed, because the plan is the plan, but it doesn't take into account discovery and merit-based decision. There was no merit-based decision in that process. That's why we got to fire most of the leadership of all the agencies we have.
What was the name of the offensive of the Nazis?
The offensive, the Nazi offensive was against the Kurz offensive.
Okay, thanks.
KURTZ, which was a little small town or city in Russia.
Okay.
Mr. Binney, this question comes from a moderator on the subreddit.
Okay.
His name is F-Thumb. And he just asked, do you know if WhatsApp is as secure and encrypted as they bill themselves to be?
I am basically not certain, but I certainly don't think they, my answer to that would be probably not, because I think they are one of the ones cooperating with NSA and the rest of the gang.
Thank you, Mr. Binney. Would that also mean then that like other apps that claim that they're secure end-to-end encryption, for example, Facebook Messenger has a feature where you can send people encrypted messages that delete automatically after you set the time to.
Okay, but you know, NSA, GCHQ, and the rest of them have various programs. One of them was called Bull Run. That was a program to work with all the companies producing encryption systems to put and insert weaknesses in those systems so that they could read them. Now, the extent of that program, how much that they actually did or achieved, I don't know, but some of it was clear in the PRISM program and the outline that was compromised by Edward Snowden, showing the cooperation of different companies, you know. So that'll give you an idea. Look at the PRISM program, Google NSA space PRISM program, and look at the companies involved and, read about it. And the Bull Run program also. It's on the web.
Got it. Thank you. Jason, do you have the next question?
I sure do. So here's one. Thank you for the AMA. This is a multi-part question from JRon12104, so you can see which parts you take up. As a former NSA employee, can Bill comment on Admiral Mike Rogers and his compliance overview that led to the discovery of the FISA abuse that was used to prosecute Flynn? Moreover, can Bill comment on Flynn and Rogers working with Trump to expose government corruption? This naturally leads to the phenomenon of QAnon, which implies that Rogers and Flynn are part of an operation to expose nearly all corruption in the US. What does Bill know about QAnon? Does he believe it to be real? Bill, do you have any connection to Cicada 3301, Thomas Schoenberger, Ian Murdoch, or Mike Levine? That's about 5 questions there.
Can you help me follow those?
Let me add that for people
we're doing one at a time.
Please post one question at a time in your post. You can just make multiple posts if you have multiple questions. It would make it a lot easier for us. Thank you. Go ahead.
First of all, I can answer. I'm not involved in QAnon, and I don't know anything about that cicada thing that he was 101. Was it? I didn't have a chance to write that one down.
3301.
Okay.
It's a series of puzzles on the internet, and people are wondering who has created them.
Yeah, I don't know, but can you read the first question there, Jason? Then we can.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, can you comment on Mike Rogers and his compliance overview that led to the discovery of the FISA abuse that was used to prosecute Flynn?
Okay, here's the problem with that, and I fed some information into people to try to find answers in that process, and I think some of that might have prompted him to do some of the things he did. First of all, I hold him accountable for collecting, in violation of the Constitution, all of the messages and conversations of U.S. citizens inside this country without a warrant. His agency did that. They ran that, and they continued to do that for the rest of the U.S. government and the cooperation worldwide. And I hold him accountable for that. He's still responsible. He didn't object, and he didn't, from my point of view, if I was in charge of that, I would have come out publicly and said that I won't be a part of it. He did not do that. He did not do that until I think it started to become obvious that they were going to investigate and find that with Durham and Barr, because I was feeding stuff through different channels to them to try to get them to tell them how to do things in terms of finding information inside the NSA databases and so on. And they have started doing stuff. They have put a separate guy out to investigate unmasking. That was one of the things I sent in. Right? There's a number of other things, and so it's very clear to me that that fundamentally Rogers is now cooperating to save his ass.
Okay. This question is a bit of a forensic one, though. I know we do have a link to it in the post, but I'll ask it anyway.
Yep.
This comes from KMchale. Mr. Binney, I became fully aware of you when Seth Rich was killed. I understand a bit about metadata. My question is, did you have the actual data to prove the transfer was local, not a hack? That's one question. And then there's another part which you can answer if you'd like. I would also like to know if you're familiar with the 9/11 claims made by Captain Field McConnell and Captain Dan Hanley and BHUAP.
Okay, first of all, do we have the evidence that it's local, not a hack? Yes, and you guys have the copy of that wherever you want to post it. Also, there's 2 parts to this. One is the DNC data that was posted by Wikileaks, and the other is the set of information posted by Guccifer 2. That's 2 different sets of information, and there's 2 different sets of issues to deal with. But one was the Guccifer 2. It was the fact that the files that he posted for the 5th of July and the 1st of September merged? Did you guys have that merger to show that at down to the millisecond, it doesn't conflict? You know, so he's playing with the data that tells us that. Also, the speeds of transfer, which is all calculated from that. I have that, but I have it on hard copy. I can try to get it out electronically to you guys later on. I just have to go somewhere and get it photographed and downloaded to a file. And the other thing was the fact that Gooser 2 had posted on the 15th of June, he posted files with Russian signatures, and those 5 of those files were posted by WikiLeaks in the Podesta emails, and they did not have Russian signatures. So that kind of said to us, Gooser 2 is a fake, and he made it look like the Russians did the hack, but they didn't. And that's a part of the Marble Framework program that was compromised under the Vault 7 program, and they did say it was used once in 2016. Well, we think it was used on the 15th of June by Gooser 2 out of CIA. That's where the evidence is pointing. Now, I think CIA needs to answer that. And I think NSA also has the data showing that the DNC hack, whatever it was to get data, went to CIA, not to WikiLeaks.
Okay, just real quick so I can clarify. The Marble Framework was done by the CIA. That's their program?
That's their program, compromised in Vault 7. And it was there to show that they could do a hack and make it look like somebody else did it, mainly the Russians.
And just so this isn't on the AMA, but is it not the case that Mike Pompeo was CIA director in 2016?
No, I don't think 16. He was there in 17.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. You'd have to look up exactly when he took over CIA. I thought it was 2017, because that's when I went to see him.
Right.
In October.
Yeah, that's true. He took that office in January 2017 with the new administration.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. Any reason to dunk on Mike Pompeo is a good one, in my opinion. But when a little bit later we can get into your displeasure of meeting Mr. Pompeo. But anyways, Jason, do you have the next question?
Sure. So, what are your thoughts on Edward Snowden? He doesn't seem to speak up as much as you do.
Well, I just thought that he did a great public service by exposing all the crimes that the government was committing. You know, and I keep saying and referring to Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7. Those are the regulations governing classification for the entire United States government. And it says, very simply put, you cannot classify, maintain classified, or not declassify any evidence of a crime, corruption, fraud, waste, abuse, and a couple other things. So what it basically says is, government, you cannot cover up your crimes by classification. And a lot of that stuff, I don't know if all of it, I haven't looked at all of it, but a lot of that stuff that I looked at from, released and published from Edward Snowden, is evidence of criminality of the United States government and violation of the Constitution, the Pen Register Law, Electronic Privacy Act, Electronic Security Act, FTC regulations, all those kinds of violations that they're doing. And you can't cover that up by, they must declassify. That's one of the things I put in. They wanted help on how to declassify material. I said, here, just use this regulation, you know? So, and that's, I think, what the DNI, what's his name? He was in there temporarily. He used that, I think, to release and declassify the testimony in front of Shift, where he was, where the CEO of CrowdStrike testified that they could not prove or had no evidence that the data from the DNC was actually exfiltrated. And he covered that up for a couple of years with classification and lied about it, saying there was evidence that it was, you know, Russians that did it. That was a lie.
Jason, do you have another question lined up? I'm still editing my mistakes on the other one.
Yeah, I'm just finishing typing this one up. I'm almost done. Got 10 seconds here. Well, okay. You know what? I can. Well, yeah. No, okay. Let's just pause for just a moment.
Okay. You know, while we're paused here, Mr. Binney, could you please tell us What was your? Oh, never mind. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay. What can so? This kind of question comes up a lot. I know you've responded to it on the previous AMA, but the question simply says from Political Bimbo, did Seth Rich give the emails to WikiLeaks?
I have no absolute proof that that is the case, but someone, according to Craig Murray and testimony by him or his public statements, he said he met somebody on the American University campus that was involved in the physical transfer of data to WikiLeaks. And it was also, it's kind of implied by Julian Assange's comments on a TV program in the Netherlands, I think. After Seth Rich's murder, he kind of implied that that was the case. He also put up a $20,000 reward for any information on the solution of to help solve the murder case. So, and there is also statements publicly made by Kim.com saying that he helped Seth Rich get data to WikiLeaks. So I don't have, that's testimony. I don't have absolute proof otherwise, and other than what people have said.
Jason, do you have another one, or should I go?
I'm typing this one up. Yeah, 15 seconds and I'll be done.
Okay.
I should have paid more attention in typing class.
I agree with you there for one. Okay, here we go. What are your thoughts about financial surveillance? And do you think cryptocurrency will remove the power from the state and the banks?
Well, you know, I'm not a financial expert, but I know that financial transactions are monitored also. So that, and is there a possibility of corrupting that through this system, like delaying things in transfer and modifying transfers and things of that nature? All of that's possible. But I wouldn't be I shouldn't be the final word on that. It's just my opinion in that case, okay?
No problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Binney.
Okay. Wow. Okay, here's an exciting one. What do you expect to happen in this election, considering your level of inside information? How can we prepare for the worst case scenario?
Let me put it this way: if we elect, my view, this is my view, okay? If we elect the Democrats, we deserve what we get, okay? And that means that we're not going to have an active economy. They're going to stifle the economy just like they did before President Trump came in. I mean, at least he's dealing with issues that no one else has ever dealt with, like the swindling of all our money with the Chinese and all the other countries in the world. They were giving away our jobs and all of that from the Rust Belt was becoming no longer the Rust Belt under President Trump, but everybody before him, including the Republicans, made it that way. So I just say, if you don't elect President Trump and Republicans to support him, we're going to go and have a lot of problems.
Okay. Wow. I think you will be met with actually a friendly response. This subreddit, according to them, they don't see politics as left or right, but up and down. So I think they're just as fed up with the Democratic Party as you are. And like I said in the beginning, what holds us all together, whether our differences or not, is truth.
Yeah.
That's why we're all here. So the
Democratic Party today is not the Democratic Party it used to be. I mean, it used to be, they were, the loyal opposition, they actually still cared about the country and didn't want to destroy jobs or things of that nature. They wanted to try to do the right thing. So they had a different way of doing it, and that's fine,
That's right. That's right. That's good. No, thank you very much, Mr. Binney. That's wonderful. Okay, so easier question here. What's your favorite book? Oh, this comes from Suspect Axiom. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book. It's I haven't read a book in so long. It's not funny. It really isn't. I read parts of books, but not a whole book, because, I just like to think, sit there and ponder and and meditate. I'm a meditator. So let's see, I'm trying to think of one. Well, I always enjoyed Edgar Allan Poe's poems and things of that nature, his things. So he's buried in Baltimore too, by the way.
Right. Oh, he's buried in Baltimore. I did not know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
his grave is in downtown Baltimore, in a church right across from the University of Maryland Medical Center.
Yeah, he I know a lot of his short stories deal with
Yeah.
analysis and really cracking codes.
Yep.
Like the gold bug. That's
Yep.
one of my favorite ones too.
Yep.
So only makes sense. Yeah.
But I haven't done any reading for a long time, except I do research, all the time, going across the web, looking at different things. So I'm not really, books are kind of too focused for me, I guess. That's what I'd say. I like to try to absorb data across the web and try to find information that can at least be used to, to ensure that that you have a correct set of data and information to make a judgment on.
Great. Jason, do you have the next question?
Sure. Yeah. This question comes from Mind is Moving, who asks, "Hi, Bill. Thanks for stopping by here. One of the few progressive forums that did not get suckered into the whole Russiagate hysteria." He's referring to the subreddit Way of the Burn that we're on. Right? He says, "I'm interested," or it says, "I'm interested to know about the corporate culture at the NSA. How is it similar to or different from any other corporate culture? People at a lower level in the organization have a different justification for their jobs than those at higher level. How does the NSA recruit and decide who can be promoted? And I think this is the best part, what measures do you think the NSA would resort to if there was ever enough political will to put the mass surveillance genie back in the bottle?"
Well, the culture there is they try to recruit people with different different skill fields like electrical engineering and computer science and languages and things of that nature. People who have that training in mathematics, especially too. People who have that training from universities. They try to recruit those kinds of people into their workforce. But once they're in, they're basically pigeonholed and told to do this job or that job or whatever. And so they're told to do certain things. And then as they move up the ranks of management to management and so on, they begin to be told from different higher level managements, this is how you manage. And it fundamentally is not done. I mean, partially it's done on a merit based, but only if the management higher up agrees with that merit. In other words, if you have an answer to a problem that doesn't, like the thing we did with the internet, giving people privacy and all that didn't cost a lot of money. The main management at NSA wanted to build a budget and become bigger and have more people and more contracts and all of that, and have more influence because of the data they could collect by bulk acquisition. So when you go against that philosophy, even though you have a merit-based case to make it justify doing it, they will reject it. And so that's like a closed-minded mental process that goes up and down the major levels of agency management, not just in NSA, but also CIA and all of them. Take, for example, when President Johnson wanted to, have a war with Vietnam, and he used the Tonkin Gulf affair to get it started. Well, even from the captain of the destroyer, which was supposedly attacked by gunboats from North Vietnam, even when the commander of that ship had said that the attack he was alleging did not happen, even in that case, he used that as a pretext to go to war in Vietnam. And look how many, we killed over 1 million people there and lost 60-some thousand of ours and crippled so many people. It's not funny on both sides, And for that reason, the agenda, once they set it up there at higher levels, sometimes it's hard to break through with the truth and make sure that they don't do a false thing like go to war in Vietnam, or like what Bush did with weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It's the same thing, the same issue. And it's the same pyramid thinking. When you're at the top, you think a certain way. When you're trying to bring the merit-based decisions up, sometimes they get wiped out at the higher levels. And what was the other one? There was another one at the end. What could NSA do?
What measures do you think NSA would resort to if there were ever enough political will to put the mass surveillance genie back in the bottle? So I'm not sure that means
Okay,
what NSA.
yeah, they would simply use all the data they've collected on all the members of Congress, members of the courts, and the administration. Use that data against them to try to make sure and influence them not to do it. Look at what they did to President Trump. Same thing. That's what they did to him. That's what they did to candidate Trump. That's what they did to Mr. Trump, even before he became a candidate. So, this is how they operate, and this is how they manipulate people. So.
Okay. Can I ask the next question, Jason? You're good? All right, great. So this one is a comment and a question.
Okay.
The comment's a little long, but the question is very brief. So up to you how to respond. Hi,
Okay.
Bill. Oh, this comes from Evil PhD 666.
Oh.
Hi, Bill.
Oh, Satan, huh?
Hi, Bill. Thanks for doing this. I think CrowdStrike had extreme financial motive to plant the signatures as they used this as street cred to legitimize their highly lucrative $6.7 billion IPO. And then they put a link to that. It seems the entire Russiagate / Red Scare 3.0 has given many investment opportunities. Renaissance Technologies, Trump's #1 briber of 2016, paid John Bolton $4 million between 2016 and 2018. Bolton was then propped up into the unelected National Security Advisor position for Trump. They went on to make $40 billion. Bolton was let go to a $2 million book advance running to the Democrats. The Democrats keep passing more funding and authority to expand on our violations, and the Republicans keep foaming at the mouth for law and order and security. We keep replacing these people and the heads of agencies with every administration, but nothing seems to change. Wall Street and these major investors / bribers control Congress, and in such, the appointments. Now, here's the question. What do you think we, the people, can do to try to change the culture or to hold Wall Street to their account for their influence on the national security state? Thank you, Bill.
Well, let me give you another example here. First of all, I pretty much agree with what they've been saying. And I want to give you an example. Elliot Spitzer was going after the Wall Street people after the 2008, 7-8, financial crisis. He was going after them for defrauding people. And he was stopped again by the FBI and NSA, and those people were looking at data against him to try to find evidence against him so that they could get rid of him so he wouldn't take down the bankers for criminal activity. Unfortunately, that's exactly what they did. And this is how NSA and the gang down there, having all this data, makes it possible to make these things happen. That's certainly the way things have been going, and it's only getting worse. And unless we stop this, it's gonna continue to get worse. And I said originally, and I testified to the German Bundestag, also to the House of Lords in the UK, that this entire process was heading down to making countries totalitarian states. We were losing democracy around the world by this process. And I said that years ago. In fact, then when I first came out, that was the reason I left NSA in 2001, because I recognized this very clearly as a process that the KGB, the Stasi, the Gestapo and SS, that was the entire process that they were setting up to make sure they could control their population. And I called it population control back then. And I keep using Wolfgang Schmidt's quote. He's a former East German lieutenant colonel in the Stasi. When he looked at the NSA collection system and monitoring system, said, for us, the Stasi, this would have been a dream come true. That tells you exactly, from their perspective even, how bad it is and how far we've gone. Can you repeat the question again, Jose, so I can make sure I...
Sure. His question was, What do you think we the people can do to try to change the culture or to hold Wall Street to account for their influence on the national security state?
Well, my point is, if you, the only issue I would have is keep Trump, fire everyone else in the election. Okay, so keep Trump, fire everyone else. But you know, and the other point is to demand that Barr and Durham actually start indicting people and follow the evidence. They have plenty of evidence. I mean, this is, and if they don't have enough, there's more in NSA, and I told them how to get it. Okay, so the point is, do it. Stop this crap, and you know, don't delay any longer. Start doing things and make sure that people in the population understand what happened and who's responsible, and that they're being held accountable for it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Binney. Jason, are you ready with the next question? You are muted, my friend.
I sure am. Okay, here's the question. Mr. Binney, this is from Welsh Terrier 2. Would you please comment on the hypocrisy of the U.S. Russiagate allegations in the context of the U.S. toppling of governments all around the world, such as Congo, Brazil, and Bolivia, and its current efforts to topple governments in Syria, Venezuela, and Nicaragua? I have a second question, so we can take these separately perhaps. Close to home, do you believe the CIA and or the NSA played a key role in the Kennedy assassination? And is the agency still involved in influencing domestic elections in the US?
Well, first, Russiagate was kind of the whole idea behind Russiagate is to create a new Cold War. And getting back to previous conversations or questions about money and all of that, the new Cold War would cost us more trillions of dollars. And that's where people would like to feed on this, on all of this funding. That's the whole point of it. Create a new Cold War, more money gets flown, pushed into the intelligence community and the militaries. So that's what I call is the third swindle. The first swindle was you had to give up privacy for security. The second was cybersecurity. When they had all the weaknesses, tens of thousands of attacks that were possible by the Vault 7 and by the NSA and GCHQ and all of them, all of those things meant that they knew that we weren't secure and they didn't fix them. So when they didn't fix them, we were all sitting there vulnerable to an attack. And when we got attacked, they would say, we need more money for cybersecurity. You see the swindle. What I keep saying publicly is they have to fix the problems they know about, all the tens of thousands of things in the Vault 7 and NSA compromised material, and then maybe we'll have some cybersecurity. Then if they get attacked, sure, we need more money for cybersecurity. But until then, no. And the same is true here. There was no Russia hack, and they've never produced any evidence whatsoever that it actually happened, or that the Russians tried to influence anything. In what way? What specifically did they do? I mean, they claim that trolls like the Internet Research Agency were used to influence it, but then, and they said they worked for the Russian government, and they put that in the Rosenstein indictment. Well, then the IRA, the Internet Research Agency out of St. Petersburg, Russia, sent lawyers in to challenge discovery on that because they said they weren't involved with the Russian government. And guess what? The US government had zero evidence that they were. And so the judge threw them out. The only one to report about that, as I said, the last Reddit, was Aaron Mate. No one else in the mainstream media would report that. Why? Because it goes against the allegation of Russiagate and this lie they've been perpetuating for years. And so that means that they would have to face the crow that they've got to eat, and they can't do that because it's too big. It's grown too far over the years. It's too hard to swallow. So, at any rate, and unfortunately, that's the mentality being spread by the US government around the world. We should stay the hell out of this stuff. We don't belong there. If other countries want to do something, that's their business.
Great. Would you also like to address the part about the Kennedy assassination and whether the agency is still?
I really don't have any evidence, although there have been allegations that the CIA was involved in. I really don't have any knowledge or that would prove or in any way implicate them in that. Although, you know, it is true that JFK wanted to bust up the CIA, I think, and he wanted to break it up in different parts. So, I mean, if you consider that a motive, okay.
Just a clarification, Mr. Binney. Who was the person who made that quote that for us, the Stasi, it would have been a dream come true?
Wolfgang Schmidt.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
That was a great quote that clearly told us what should have told us exactly what this means.
Yes. This comes from the moderators. So they didn't submit it to the Reddit AMA, but they messaged this at 4:30 a.m. last night. Have you been asked to testify in the Durham cases and indictments going on, or in the cases that are happening?
No. No one has asked me to testify in any. Mueller didn't ask, or Rosenstein. No one from the FBI or the NSA or anyone in Congress, all the committees doing the investigation, none of them asked me to testify. Right? So, I mean, I didn't go along with their narrative, and I had evidence to contradict it, and they didn't want to hear that. I also put affidavits in General Flynn's case and Roger Stone's case. The material that I sent you showing the times for the last modified times on all the DNC emails, and also the merge of files between 5th of July and the 1st of September of Lucifer 2. All of that, I sent that to you, and you guys can post it somewhere. But they didn't want to hear that. I gave that data to the lawyers involved in the cases that I've been subpoenaed for, and I'm willing to give it to anybody. So, you know, no one wanted to hear the truth. That's the problem.
Wow. That's interesting, because everybody here on this live stream and the AMA is hearing the truth. Shouldn't this be something that Durham and Barr and Trump should be interested in?
Absolutely.
Maybe the people watching at home can join us in our psychological warfare. Oh, go ahead, Benny.
Good, but Jose, I would point out it was President Trump who sent the then CIA director Pompeo to talk to me for evidence about Russiagate. That was his opening statement to me. Now, you know, if stop and think about that for a minute. Here I am, an individual, and all I've got is my little computer here and Google and all kinds of interrogations for into the web and data out there. And I find evidence to contradict the narrative, and actually have fundamental evidence from the researchers who were participating with us on data from the web to show that this was a falsehood. A statement that Russiagate was a fabrication by, in my case, I would say, a mixture of the DNC, FBI, CIA, NSA was participating also, and DHS, and the State Department, and the White House at the time. So if I can do that, and here we are paying for over $100 billion a year for an intelligence community, 16 major agencies in one management system, you know, what are we spending our money on? I mean, I told him basically these people, I mean, I knew that the NSA had 32 files or 32 pages of data on Seth Rich that they admitted. Now that's not, I heard through the grapevine that they have a hell of a lot more than that. And they're not telling the truth to anybody. And that's what I told Pompeo, that his agency is not, and the rest of them are not telling the truth to the president or him, period. And he didn't want to believe that. Well, he wanted to defend his agency because he was the head of it. But the fact of the matter is they're not telling him the truth, period.
Yes. Jason, do you have the next question?
I sure do.
Okay.
Let's see here. I also want to remind our YouTube viewers to like and subscribe. If you like this content and you want more of it, like and subscribe and turn on the notifications. Next question comes from the very unfortunate, who asks, what started you on the path for answers on Russiagate?
Well, it was just the public statements being made in starting in late July, August of 2016. I see when you're in the intelligence business and you are involved in different reports, which I was down through 36 years worth of activity, 4 in the military and 32 in NSA. when they start saying, using certain words and in phrasing how their evidence, what evidence they're using to back up or whatever they claims they are making in a report, then you can tell pretty much right away whether or not there's substance behind it or not. In other words, you always ask the question of where's the beef, okay? Where is the substance of this report that makes it possible to believe it? And the way they were stating this business about Russiagate and all of that just smacked right away of me of saying there is no evidence behind it. So, and basically that's what I started challenging in August of 2016. And I kept challenging it and gathered more and more evidence over time with cooperation from others who are also joining me in the analysis, from people from the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, and also some of our affiliates, people who joined us in the investigation in the UK. And between all of us, it was very clear we came up with concrete forensic evidence that it was a fabrication. And nobody wanted to hear that in courts or in the administration or in Congress or anything. I mean, I was asked to testify about some of this stuff, spying and all, in the German Bundestag, okay? And at that time, no one in Washington, they still haven't wanted to hear from me in any way. So, and I'm only 20 miles up the road, but when I was testifying to the Bundestag, the NSA committees, intelligence committees, sent representatives to that German committee doing the investigation to listen to my testimony. Now it's 3,500 miles away, you know, and I'm only 20 miles up the road. So tell me the insecurity of these people not wanting to hear from me, because if they hear from me, they can't claim plausible deniability. Okay, so they have to keep me out, otherwise they can't claim that. But they'll send people over to listen to my testimony to the Bundestag, 3,500 away over in Europe. You know, they'll take the expense to do that, but they won't ask me to come 20 miles down the road at virtually no expense to testify. So, you know, that's the government we have.
You got that, Jason? Okay. All right. Mr. Binney, here is somebody who, this was posted by a moderator, but I think it's somebody else's question. Or it might be theirs, but this was posted by the same moderator, F Thumb. And then he says, literally advocating people making their own crypto? Respectfully, Mr. Binney, that is straight up the #1 thing you should basically never, ever try to do. Then he has a link here that says the dangers of rolling your own encryption. Good encryption tools are audited, open source, and battle tested in the field. It's incredibly easy for non-experts to make extremely minor mistakes with encryption tools that render them completely insecure. And that has happened numerous times in modern history. NSA has even relied on those mistakes to compromise those systems, like with the Juniper Network firmware bug that Snowden helped reveal. Why in the world would you be giving such terrible advice to people here?
Okay, I could give him a little history lesson. The history goes like this. During World War II, I mean, there were a lot of dependencies on acquisition of materials through combat or through other means. Like, for example, the Russian or the German Enigma device, which was their major high-level encryption system, was basically invented in the 1920s for business, for German business. And they had the Polish manufacturing company manufacture the equipment. And that gave the Poles the opportunity to, you know, like every part would be numbered in sequence. And they would let the line move along to the next part and not renumber or put the next number up on that part and then take that part out. So that the German down at the end looking at the line would have a count of every number coming down sequentially. He'd have them all, but one of those duplicate numbers was given to the Poles. That equipment was given to the Poles in the manufacturer so that they could put together the Enigma device separate from the production line and have it to use and give to their intelligence people to start to try to read the encryption. And then when the war started, there were two people who attacked Poland. The Germans came in from the west, and the Russians came in from the east, and they basically conquered Poland. And yet we don't, the alliance only declared war on one based on the invasion of Poland, and yet two countries invaded, but they couldn't take them both on, so they only took one on. I had a problem with that too. So, but at any rate, the point was the Poles had that as a way of getting into encryption, and that's fundamentally what the Bull Run program and what they're doing now is all about. So how to get into that, but and also in the internet, which is an unclassified area, but it's a large volume area. But when you do that, what you're doing is you're taking away the experience, the opportunity for people to experience how to recover and reconstruct and be able to generate keys and streams for existing encryption systems. And that fundamentally has been lost over the decades because of the move to the internet and unencrypted stuff, or encryptions that you're compromised, and things like that. So the point of having separate individuals do it would be that they'd have variations. Sure, they'd have weaknesses in them, but it would take people's time to find them. That's what they don't have. Okay, that is not available to them to do, and they don't have the experienced people to do that. In the numbers, if everybody started doing that, they would never have the numbers to be able to do that and keep up.
Thank you, Mr. Binney. Jason, do you have the next question lined up, or?
I sure do.
Great.
Next question from Older and Wiser Now. What is your who also Older and Wiser Now has posted a couple of posts on Reddit based on your previous AMAs, and wanted to let you know that he or she had been sharing that. And what is your view of our constitutional right not to be spied upon by the government? As I understand it, laws have been passed that infringe on these rights. But of course, if they're unconstitutional, they should be overturned if they are challenged. I assume that you are more familiar with this situation than anyone, and I'd like to hear your assessment of where we are today. Have we essentially lost the right not to be spied upon?
Fundamentally, that is correct. The problem is that's what we're addressing in our current petition to the Supreme Court of the United States. It's we need to challenge the constitutionality of bulk acquisition of U.S. citizens by NSA, CIA, and FBI, the primary participants here, but also you get the State Department having some contribution and so on, but and also Commerce and all of that, they're providing information to do this kind of spying. So the whole point is that's a challenge to that. The only previous challenge was Amnesty International versus Clapper. And that was challenging, again, specifically the fact that they would have all this data and use it against people in courts of law to criminally charge them and so on in violation of the Fifth and Sixth Amendments of the Constitution. So also the Fourth. So, but in the case of Amnesty International versus Clapper, the Solicitor Generals lied to the Supreme Court to get that case thrown out. This is all well documented. Just Google Amnesty International versus Clapper, and you'll get all this data. It's already posted on the web. Anybody can read it and investigate it. So, but the Solicitor General lied to get that thrown out. He said, if that information was ever used against anyone in a criminal case in court, that the individual, his lawyers, and the court would be told that it was originally captured by NSA. That was a lie. No one has ever been told. And so that got thrown out, and now we're challenging it again. This time, we hope the Solicitor General doesn't lie. So that's certainly the issue, and it is a main one because we've lost basically our rights under our Constitution. And the same is true for everybody worldwide. That's the problem. It's destroying democracy and our republic.